Hello again. This time I'm back on YouTube to do a review for the Skypad 3.0. Mostly because I'm now an affiliate and I want people to use my code. Money moves aside, there are legit reasons for making this video. Number 1, comparisons between the 2.0 and the 3.0 are rare and at points conflicting. This I will get into more details later. Number 2, most reviews on Skypads are made by clothpad mains who only spend a couple of days on one, and then comment basic things like, it's fast without providing much nuance. Based on this, I thought it would be cool for me to give my input, as someone that has made hard pads for the past year. So why should you trust what I have to say? First, I do main one of these, and secondly, I'm okay at aiming. Again, for transparency, I am an affiliate, link in description, but I bought this pad and the 2.0 with my own money prior to getting affiliate, so this is as unbiased as I can possibly be. With that out of the way, let's begin. Let's first go over the in-game performance. Going from a cloth pad to a sky pad is not like swapping between two cloth pads, where the pad changes in speed and the general experience remains mostly similar. It's a completely new experience. So it's more like you're trading a set of features for another, meaning that there are some traits that you gain and some traits that you lose. Let me first go over what you lose with a sky pad. Number 1, loss of dampening. With hard pads, you simply lose the dampening you get with the rubber base on cloth pads, meaning that you can't press down into the pad for extra friction and control. This can be somewhat dealt with by putting your fingertips onto the pad, but they will take time to get used to and in my opinion shouldn't be something that you do as I see as a crutch for having bad mouse control, which leads me to my second point. Number 2, potential loss of control. With this being the fastest pad you can reliably get at the time of writing, you lose out on the stability that cloth pads can provide with the dampening and their generally slower surfaces. This means that there is nothing hiding in mistakes. Every mistake, like shakiness, poor micro adjustments, overflicking, and so on, will be significantly amplified on this, making you play much worse initially. Speaking of cons, there's also a few more downsides with the Skypad that you won't get on a normal pad. Number 1, sleeves. Sleeves are mandatory on Skypads in my experience, and no, long sleeves do not count as those will only get caught on the edge of the pad and bunch up. For some, this may be an issue as it is annoying to put on sleeves every time you play. But for me personally, I don't mind it since I wear sleeves by default, even on cloth pads. Number 2, maintenance. This is easily the most annoying thing about this pad. Any dust or hair will render the pad completely unusable. When your feet gets caught on a speck of dust or God forbid hair, you will know as it will scratch on the feet and will leave a mark if you don't wipe it off immediately. Therefore, I always have a microfiber cloth next to my setup to clean the pad, and at this point I've made it a habit to wipe it daily. Number 3, noise. When moving the mouse is noisy, so for those that care, beware. That's pretty much it for the cons, so let's go over what you gain with a Skypad. Number 1, consistency. With a hard pad, temperature and humidity are simply non-issues. For those that don't live in the tropics like I do, this may seem not too important. But back when I was using a cloth pad, a GSL SE to be exact, I would get on the PC at 9 am after a night with the AC on, meaning low humidity, and by the time I come back after lunch, the pad is noticeably slower. While I just adapted by playing more, I personally would like to eliminate as many variables as I can. I don't want to check the weather report before playing. However, sweat will affect how the pad feels, so again, you should probably have something to wipe the pad down when needed. Number 2, durability. It's a piece of glass, it's going to last forever. Just the pad though. The pad will grind your mouse feet, and unsurprisingly, as glass is harder than PTFE, after a while you will need to change your feet. How long that takes is directly related to how much you play. For reference, it's about 2 to 3 months for me. Again, for some this may be annoying and also expensive, but I find spending $10 every 2 months to be much preferable than having your $80 cloth pad develop a slow spot and having to replace it after 6 months. This shouldn't be said, but glass or ceramics feet are not made for glass pads. Do not try using them. Number 3, speed. This may seem self-explanatory. This is fast. If we refer to Hoyer's master sheet, it is the fastest pad you can reliably get. This level of speed is hard to describe with words. It's so fast that, to put it bluntly, this is uncontrollable for a lot of people. There's still some stopping power, however. Anyway, as I've said in the first half of the review, any mistake you make with your mouse will be amplified significantly. But on the other hand, there's also nothing holding you back in terms of control. If you have the skills to back it up, this pad will let you hit new heights. In game, I'm more confident going for difficult flicks and tough peaks. And with time, micro adjustments also felt sharper as it takes less effort for me to do them. Number 4, smoothness. As the Skypad has a smoother surface compared to cloth, the response from the mouse to your hands will also be a lot smoother, which I personally think helps for tracking. For some personal anecdotes, when I first got on Glass back in 2021, my scores on reactivity scenes improved drastically. An example would be my score on AA4, going from a low GM score to a Nova choke in just 30 minutes. Smoothness and target switching scenes mostly remained the same, but my static did take a dip. However, again, over time I learned how to play on Glass, and now I'm better than I was on all skills, including static, which I'm still bad at. A lot of people say that the Skypad is bad for static, which I would mostly agree, as I believe it to be too fast and unstable for those scenarios. But I believe you shouldn't consider it impossible. It is completely doable to get decent static scores on Glass, i.e. bottles hitting 1500 on 116 target spawn on Glass with 27 centimeters. However, it will take more effort. If you don't mainly play tracking games and play corner holding simulators, you should only get this pad if you're very certain of what you want. Performance aside, something else that reviewers often skip is how the pad feels to use outside of gaming. Believe it or not, I actually do other things at my computer that aren't gaming, so to put it simply, it's not as comfortable as a cloth pad. No rubber base means that there's no cushioning and you're just resting your hand on a slab of glass. It's not unusable either and works just fine, but if you do a lot of desktop work, consider picking up a cloth pad along with a Skypad to use outside of gaming. Also of note, while this isn't something that affects me personally due to where I live, but some have said that in the winter where it's sub-zero, the pad could be too cold to play on, making it more like an ice mat. That's pretty much it for the review session. Now it's time for the comparisons to the 2.0. Before I got my 3.0, I was using the 2.0, so I spent a lot of time looking for comparisons. But what I ended up finding is a lot of conflicting info where some reviewers say it's faster and some say it's slower. So in the end, I had to try them for myself. And from what I've tested, for static friction, both pads are similar. But the 3.0 has less dynamic friction. The 3.0 is also much smoother to play on because the surface itself is smoother. But in the general scheme of things, both are quite similar performance-wise, other than the size where the 3.0 is slightly bigger, 400 times 500 millimeters instead of 370 times 450, which I appreciate. The biggest difference is the experience of using one. Using a 3.0 is simply superior to the 2.0 in every single way. It's not as loud when you move your mouse. While I said the 3.0 is loud, the 2.0 is legitimately deafening at points. Moreover, the 3.0 is thinner, so it's just less annoying on the desk. And lastly, as the surface itself is smoother, it's just more pleasant to use for desktop use. To conclude, let's finally talk about the price. $120 for the XL, without affiliate. It's a high ask, even when compared to other high-end pads like Artisans. For me, in the long term, the price stings a little less because instead of buying a new cloth pad as the old one gets worn out, I simply buy new feet every 2 to 3 months. Nonetheless, it's still very expensive. So I can only recommend this pad to people who are very certain of what they want or are very curious to try a hard pad. If you're already on a 2.0 and like using it, I think the upgrade is 100% worth it. Something important to add is that I think people who are beginners or even novices in AIM shouldn't try this pad yet. At those levels of skills, there are simply too many inconsistencies with your aim that will be highly amplified by a Skypad. As someone that has spent an unhealthy amount of time optimizing my aim, I personally love this pad and what I can do with it, and I will main it for the foreseeable future. Now that the review is out of the way, code Doki for 10% off.